Some of the toughest psychological survival strategies ever recorded didn't come from soldiers in trenches, generals in war rooms, or spies behind enemy lines. They came from families, ordinary civilians, forced to flee burning villages, collapsing empires, and front lines that swallowed entire regions overnight. These refugees weren't trained. They weren't equipped. They weren't ready for the emotional shock of losing homes, identity, and stability all at once. Yet they developed mental frameworks strong enough to endure hunger, fear, cold, and uncertainty for years. And, the lessons they left behind have real value for anyone studying resilience, crisis response, or psychological preparedness today. So let's step straight into the substance and break down 10 hard-earned psychological survival lessons from World War I refugees and how they can be applied today with practical, real-world relevance. The first lesson from World War I refugees is that grounding yourself in a single priority prevents mental collapse. Refugee accounts from the Eastern Front consistently mention that survival became manageable only after they narrowed their focus to one guiding objective, such as securing food or reaching the next safe town. When everything around you collapses at once, the mind needs a stabilizing anchor. Today, this translates into choosing one mission per crisis moment, rather than allowing your head to swirl with 20 problems at once. For example, if someone loses their job unexpectedly, the first grounding priority becomes stabilizing income, not redesigning their entire life. This direct focus creates psychological breathing room, exactly as it did for displaced families in 1915. The second lesson from World War I refugees is that routine rebuilds order even when the larger world has none. Refugees who survived months on the road often reconstructed small rituals: morning cleaning, shared meals, checking travel routes, caring for children at the same time each day. These rituals stitched together a sense of continuity that war had ripped away. Modern crisis psychology backs this up fully. Predictable structure tells the brain the world hasn't dissolved completely. Today, when someone is thrown into chaos, whether it's a natural disaster or a personal emergency, building a consistent daily sequence stabilizes emotional resilience. Start with waking times, cleaning routines, and meal schedules exactly as those families did while marching through mud and ruins. The third lesson from World War I refugees is that naming fear reduces its power. Many refugee diaries describe moments when people openly acknowledged their terror before continuing forward. This wasn't weakness, it was a cognitive strategy. Suppressed fear becomes irrational. Spoken fear becomes defined and manageable. In modern terms, this is emotional labeling. A prepper, historian or survivalist can use this by identifying the exact stressor during crisis moments: fear of injury, fear of running out of supplies, or fear of not making the right decision. Once identified, fear stops being a fog and becomes a target. The fourth lesson is that collective endurance is stronger than individual endurance. Refugee groups that travelled together survived at drastically higher rates. Shared labour, shared watch duties, shared emotional support, these factors weren't luxuries, they were lifelines. The modern application is pretty straightforward. No matter how self-reliant you want to be, you should build at least one dependable support network. Train with others, plan with others, and share responsibilities when emergencies hit. A lone survivor may be impressive, but historically, groups outlast individuals every single time. The fifth lesson from World War I refugees is that emotional detachment can be a temporary survival tool. Many wrote that they survived the most traumatic moments by mentally stepping back from them, refusing to dwell on loss until they reached safety. This was not numbness, it was a controlled pause. Today, this really resembles tactical compartmentalization. A modern example would be postponing emotional processing after a car accident just long enough to make calls, arrange transport, or ensure safety. It's not about being cold, it's about sequencing emotions deliberately. The sixth lesson is that mobility protects the psyche as much as the body. Refugees who kept moving, physically, mentally and strategically, avoided the paralysis that destroyed many others. Motion actually reduces helplessness. Even small steps help maintain psychological agency. Applied today, this means that when a situation feels overwhelming, you should start acting in small increments. Update your plan, reorganize your supplies, or just handle one physical task. Movement, even in small ways, breaks stagnation. The seventh lesson from World War I refugees is that conserving mental energy is, well, absolutely essential. They learned that emotional exhaustion could actually be more lethal than hunger. They rationed their reactions in the same way they rationed food. They didn't argue over avoidable issues, didn't waste attention on rumours, and didn't panic over every noise. For modern survivalists, this means refusing to indulge in doom-scrolling, speculation, or emotional overreaction during crises. Protect your cognitive fuel. The eighth lesson is that maintaining a narrative of purpose keeps the mind aligned. Refugees who framed their journey as a mission, not a wandering tragedy, showed higher resilience. The mind works better when it believes suffering leads somewhere. Today, this can be applied by reframing hardships deliberately. Instead of saying everything is falling apart, shift to saying I'm learning, transitioning, or adapting. Controlling the story means, well, controlling the psychology. The ninth lesson from World War I refugees is that gratitude is a survival weapon. Many wrote that appreciating even the smallest fortune, a dry barn, a kind stranger, an extra loaf, a warm night, boosted their emotional endurance. Gratitude isn't sentimental. It's neurological reinforcement. In modern crises, this means identifying small wins to maintain psychological stamina. The 10th lesson is that rebuilding identity is the final step of survival. Refugees eventually had to recreate who they were. New communities, new livelihoods, new roles. Survival isn't complete until identity is restored. For anyone facing crisis today, deliberate reconstruction, new goals, new routines, new identity markers is the bridge from endurance to recovery. If you found value in this deep dive into psychological survival strategies from World War I refugees, subscribe, share the video, and help bring more serious, high-quality historical analysis to the survival community.